Thank you for joining us on the Winning at Selling podcast. I'm Professor Scott Plum of the Minnesota Sales Institute, and with me is Bill Hellkamp of Reach Development Systems.
Studies have shown that many salespeople are hesitant to talk about price with their client. And when the client finally brings it up, the salesperson lacks the confidence to be credible. So hold on to your wallets as Scott and I discuss Sales Process Part 8, Budget, and other great ideas on episode 470 of the Winning at Selling podcast.
So before we get into our topic of budget, and this is one of the most downloaded topics that we've done in the past, Bill, it's always budget. It's always dealing with money. It's how do I deal with that? And there's, a couple of ways that we're going to deal with that, but we're going to postpone that until we talk about our book study of the book, Let's Get Real or Let's Not Play. And we're on chapter 7, and this is the last chapter. Yeah,
this is the last significant chapter, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And it really, and it really brings the room together as the rug in the Big Lebowski, for those that have seen that. It really brings the room together. And we're wrapping it all up and wrapping it together.
Eagles, man.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that movie. It's just one of those that after a stressful day, just put on the Big Lebowski and you're in another world.
Well, that's what I call you. I call you the Big Lebowski. So
right. Yeah.
That's good.
The dude. Okay.
The dude.
So in the beginning of the chapter, it talks about the preparation. And there's two types of preparation. There's the business hypothesis, and there's three things that include that.
The business hypotenuse.
Hypotenuse. Okay. I see a hippopotamus in my head.
There you go. That's another one. That's close.
Okay.
All right.
And there's three parts to that. There's the client's situation, our solution, and the reasons for the change, which I always think we need to talk about quickly in a conversation as part of the qualification step. And then the other one is the end in mind, which is the meeting plan. I know we've talked about in the previous chapter.
Yeah, I think, I found this to be a really interesting chapter and very challenging because the whole context of it is to say, quit calling so many people with nothing to say.
Yeah.
And start really thinking through, who do I want to talk to that might be a good match for what I do? And that I might have some other leads to be able to get in there and talk with them. And then spend some time really coming up with an understanding of their situation and how our solution will help their situation so that I have some reasons for change. Mm-hmm. So you're really doing some work before you make that first phone call.
Right. You are. You are doing hopefully enough work to determine that they fit into the universe that you work in. Now, we don't know anything about the problems that they have or the people that we need to talk to or the process they go through when it makes a change, but there is some pre-work. And I just preface that, Bill, because I think too often salespeople get hung up on doing 3 hours of homework before they even make a cold call. And then they find out.
Well, that's what he's really proposing here.
Well, I don't know. And maybe that's just a different style and a different process. And I think, leadership has to decide at a company what they want people to do. But spending 3 hours before making a cold call, I think is premature. Now, I think 3 hours before getting into a meeting with somebody. Now, we qualify them. They fit into our universe. They meet these three attributes of a qualified prospect. I think, we call them, we have a pitch. And our pitch is to be able to bring some information to the phone call, identify some of the challenges that they struggle with so that they know that we're relevant in today's marketplace. And then they work on inviting us in for a deeper, longer conversation. And then during that conversation, we do some homework and some prep, but we really concentrate on, what problems do we solve and move off the solution that we offer, because our goal is to qualify the prospect and to find out opportunities in the conversation so that our solution has something to stick to.
Well, I do think that it's important to have some reasons for talking to us. The format I use is, hey, Scott, appreciate you taking my call. We've worked with other companies like yours before, X, Y, and Z. I don't know if we could do the same thing for you, but basically what we've done for them is this.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that, that you want to look at, or are you happy with where you are?
Right.
So I've given them kind of a quick overview, a little bit of a testimony.
Context.
Context for it. Testimonies. I've worked with these companies. I'm a real company. and here's what we've done for them. Is that something that you feel is important for you as well? So you're kind of doing that, but he's really advising you take this to a situation where you've really examined the company and spend a lot more time on it than that. Don't you think?
I think that company obviously fits into the universe that you work with. So when you say we work in the industry of, let's just pick an industry. Let's say we're working on the solar industry. I mean, if you work on the solar industry, you don't have to do 3 hours of research on one company that's in the solar industry. You already work with companies within the solar industry. So you know what some of the challenges are that they face. You bring that up when you make a call to somebody or in an email if you're emailing somebody, and that creates enough curiosity and interest on the other side that they want to invite you in. And now hopefully you're a name that solar company has also heard of too. So you're not a stranger and you've got some kind of a reputation, and or you get leveraged in, which is one of the things they talked about in this chapter, is how do you really leverage your network and get invited in through somebody that that knows somebody.
Yeah, I thought that was exciting that, instead of saying, hey, can you introduce me to Larry? I might say, we've got a plan that we think will really fit for Larry. Let me tell you a little bit about that to see if you think that you'd want to ask him to meet with us.
Yeah, I love that part of the chapter. And I think that's such a powerful part of the chapter is how to be concise, how to be brief, how to be specific, how to cut it short if there's not a fit, and not burn the reputation that that person has with one of the people in your network.
That's right. That we want to have an opportunity in the future to reference them. And I think the example he used was the reference worked out so well that they wanted to reference more people.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that's a valuable tool to be able to have in your back pocket. And I don't think most people do that. I think they call up and they say, hey, John, I'd like to meet Larry at XYZ company. Can you introduce me? And they don't really give them a reason why they should do that.
Moving on with a little bit more of the chapter.
Okay.
It reemphasizes the importance of the qualification and the 5 steps of the qualification. It's the context, the issues, the evidence, the impact, and the constraints. And I really love this process when it comes to working with a prospect in that conversation, when you're sitting across the table from them and you're really working together to find out reasons for a change, reasons for them to pick your company, and then reasons for them to pick you.
See, but that's where I got confused in the chapter. So I thought the chapter was about basically contacting people to get in to see them. And then all of a sudden he's in the meeting again, which we talked about 3 chapters ago.
Right. I think they're bringing it all together. I think they defined it all. And then it's like each instrument in a band practices on their own. And then when they come together, they all sound differently. That's how I took it. And in my experience working with companies, salespeople love spending time in their comfort zone, and they're comfortable sitting in front of their computer, spending 3 hours researching a company that they haven't even made a phone call to. And
well, I think instead of researching the company, what he's saying is create an argument that goes beyond, hey, I'm Bill with Reach Development Systems. You want to talk?
Totally agree.
Right. And have something impactful to say to them so that when you get them on the phone, and usually through a reference, because that's what he was really pushing was, you shouldn't be making cold calls. You should be making warm calls.
Yeah.
You should be introduced by someone else. And with LinkedIn, our networks are large enough that we could probably find people somewhere.
Right.
Or the opposite, you start working through your network. You look through your network and see who people that you know well know already, and then try to make a case for that company.
And on page 168, he goes through and lists, here's a typical agenda: introductions, our company overview, the company products and services, the clients of our company, and that next step. I mean, that is a traditional agenda that covers nothing about what's important to the prospect. Absolutely
well, that was
nothing.
And when we had Anthony as a guest, that's what he said is the killer agenda to kill yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. Take it out in the backyard and burn it. I really love the
but I have
context.
All the logos for the companies I worked for. I want to show you my logo page.
That's cute. That's cute and sweet. But that's not what's most important to the prospect or the client that you're talking to. And another thing they really talked about in this chapter is that we're emphasizing on what's most important, not the solutions we offer. And that can be very, very difficult for salespeople, because when we go through the questioning process Every time we hear a problem, we want to offer a solution. We want to fix it. And when we talked about the questioning process a few episodes ago, we really need to find out what they've done in the past. And they've talked about this in the book. I mean, that's one of the things that they talk about is what have you done to attempt to fix it? And then another thing we need to find out is what is the cost and impact of not fixing it? Why is it a priority? Why is it important? And they use a great example in the book about here's a problem, here's the evidence, and here's the impact of the problem. And we don't really sell solutions. We sell outcomes. We sell results. We sell what the solutions will do. And now we need to find out with a company, what will that solution do for you? And when we're working with individuals on a B2C sale, we need to ask the family, the person, what would this do for you? And now that is their emotional motivation to make a change and to do something different.
Right. Yeah, I think that, you talked about, we don't talk about our own company at all. I think there's a lot of opportunities where they're going to ask a question during this early conversation where you're trying to get them to talk more. And they want to know a little bit, right?
Of course,
I think you have to be ready to have a few tidbits to throw their way and then follow that up with a question. How do you do this? Well, we do that by following this process. Why would that process be important to you?
Right.
Yeah. And so you turn that around, you give them a little bit, but then you also then follow that up with a question so that the ball's back in their court.
A technique to use in that situation, and I really encourage our listeners to practice it before you execute it, is to say, well, I'm kind of curious before I share that with you. Why did you bring that up now? And now you're finding out a little bit more about the intent behind the content. And why are they bringing up that now? Why are they curious? And as they are asking you questions, you're thinking in your mind, are they big picture or are they bottom line?
Right.
I mean, do they want to know what time it is or do they want to know how the watch works?
Right. So the book did talk about answering the question wrong because you don't know the context.
Yeah. And the questions, what we want to ask. So we need to know that what information do we need? And then what can we expect from them to ask us? And sometimes we need to lead the customer, the prospect, to ask us the questions that they should be asking us that play to our strengths. So I've got a technique, Bill, I can share it with our listeners, and it's called the NOT. And it's an acronym. So N stands for naturally, O stands for obviously, T stands for typically. And here's how you really define an agenda is you say, naturally, I'm going to want to learn a little bit more about what you're using now. How many people work here? What are some of the things that you've tried or attempted to do? What is the cost or the impact of that? And, what would you like to gain from the outcome of it? Obviously, you're going to want to know a little bit more about our company, how our philosophy is being attracting prospects in this marketplace versus us going out and recruiting them. Why companies pick us, what's the most customized, personalized attribute of our company as to why they pick us, and then what are companies seeing when they work with us. Typically, at the end of our meeting, there's a couple of things that happen. Is one, we decide that we've talked about enough things that are in common where we just define the next steps and the next outcomes, or we decide that there's not a fit, or we decide that there may not be a fit now, but something in the future, or you may know of somebody else that you'd like to introduce us to. So that's a kind of a technique of really coaching your prospects on asking the questions that they should be asking of you that play to your strengths.
All right. Excellent. That's a great suggestion. Now, we're going to run long on this if we're not careful because there's so much in this chapter.
There is another long one.
Yeah. Let's go with your key learning from this. And then because I want to have time for this budget question.
Well, the rest of it is kind of wrap up. They talked about the client's homework. We talked about that before, or give them a task where they need to do something before the meeting happens. And if they don't do it, you ask them, well, let's go through and let's do it right now. And then they just went through the steps, the decision, the when, the who, and the criteria process of decisions. And then they talked about the power of I think, using LinkedIn because you're asking for referrals from people that you know. And it's a great book in that process. And if you implement that today, I think you're finding that you're going to be invited in, you're going to be referred out, you're going to really define your reputation in the marketplace by the people that you connect with and how you introduce yourself to ask for referrals and recommendations, introductions to other people. So that's what I have.
I think the book is really a good tool, and we'll wrap it up next week. We won't have a lot of content about it next week, but we will wrap it up. They have the appendices and then his last words. So And then we'll move on to our next book, which is the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Is that it?
I'm looking forward to that. I
Habits.
started it, but I didn't finish it.
Yep. All right. Well, one of the habits is being able to finish things.
I know.
All right.
This segment has been brought to you by the Jumpstart Sales Coaching Program, presented by your host of the Winning and Selling Podcast. Every professional athlete has a coach, someone to assist and advise. Tiger Woods had 4 swing coaches so that he could stay at the top of his game. What would you like to improve or overcome in the next year? Perhaps as a salesperson, you want to be more productive with your prospecting, overcoming objections, or delivering more effective presentations. As a sales manager, you want to create a spark within your sales team with a new message, a refreshed approach to starting new conversations with the prospects, or you are looking for market-ready strategies to increase revenue and shorten the sales cycle with your existing team. Or as a business leader, you want to transform the sales culture and your value proposition for the new marketplace. Whatever your reason, this is the perfect time to engage with an experienced sales coach. That is why your hosts of Winning and Selling Podcast, Professor Scott Plum and Bill Hellkamp, have developed the Jumpstart Sales Coaching Program. Now you can receive personal coaching from the same sales professionals you enjoy on this podcast. It all starts with a discussion to give us insights into your specific goals, challenges, needs, and motivation. Go to winningatselling.com to contact Bill or Scott about the Jumpstart Sales Coaching Program. Do you believe you deserve better results? Now is the time to invest in yourself, your people, and your customers, and invest in your future.
All right, this topic is a big one. Sales process, part 8, budget. The price question, I tend to call it. And I think people get timid when talking about budget, Scott. They
really do.
Yeah. And so we want to give you some ideas, some tools, not rules, right? Nothing's a rule in sales. It's just tools you can use for more effectively discussing budget with either a prospect, somebody you haven't gotten anything, or a client. Clients are going to negotiate on price once in a while too. So keeping that conversation open is important. So my first suggestion is don't wait for the budget question to the very last thing. You're going to present the proposal and we've never talked price, and they're going to go to the last page, and their head's going to fall in their lap and their jaw's going to drop, and and you guys are so far apart. Now you're in trouble. So start the discussion early. The more distance there is between when they need to pay for something and the beginning of the process, the more likely you are to get an honest answer from them.
Yeah, very true. And I think a lot of this comes from our conceptual belief of money. And there's really there's 3 beliefs of money. One is that it's plentiful, and not a lot of people believe that, but there's another one that's scarce. And I think that's a little bit more common. The most popular belief on money is that it's not polite to talk about money. And this is one of our childhood beliefs that are real, of course, but are they true today as a salesperson in today's marketplace? And they're simply not true. We have got to talk about money.
Well, I don't ask my neighbor, hey, how much you making now?
No,
that's not my business. But saying, look, do you have a budget in mind? Do you have a figure in mind for what you think you want to spend to solve this problem? At least gets us into the area. And that's what I call the ballpark figure.
Sure.
So that's my second idea. Use the ballpark figure to gauge their level of interest. I think if you're thinking about it's $100,000 deal and they're thinking it's 20,000, you're not in the same ballpark anymore, right? You're either the Twins or you're the St. Paul Saints, right? Two different ballparks. So you're going to have to develop value, help them understand why this is going to be worth 100,000, or you're going to have to be ready to walk away because they're not going to spend 100,000 if they think the solution's only worth 20. You have a great question you use in this area.
Yeah, I do. I love the question. What budget do you want to stay under? Well, we want to stay under 15,000. Okay. So if I, discover that we have anything that might be over 15,000, or the total solution would end up being over 15,000, I'm going to hesitate presenting that because I don't want to overspend on what your budget is.
You want to break your rule.
I don't want to. Yeah, I don't want to. I'll keep that to myself. And they're like, what? Wait a minute here. if we found something that we like, we might be able to come up with the money.
Right.
Oh,
Right.
okay. So 15,000 is not really that firm. But I think overall, when you use the example, Bill, of 20,000 or 100,000, I think it's important for us to ask, I'm kind of curious, how did you come up with that number?
Sure.
Because pricing is context, period. I mean, you cannot talk about pricing unless you are talking about the context of the pricing. And they say, well, the last time we fixed it, which was 22 years ago, it was around $20,000. And it's
Right.
like, okay, now I understand the context of where your misconception is on $20,000 as a budget. Simply
Or we
not
totally
real.
pulled it out of our butt and we have
Yeah,
absolutely no
right.
idea how much this
Yeah,
thing's going to cost. You're the first one we're talking to, and we're thinking, okay, we'll spend 20. It should be able to be
yeah,
enough.
yeah. I
So
call
we
it.
have no idea what that means. Or we never talked about budget at all. And I just came up with that number,
Right. Yeah.
because it sounds really nice. It's a nice number. So you're not sure if this has been analyzed to get to this budget. We talked about in the book about impact,
Mm-hmm.
and this is where you start to bring impact into it. What's the impact if you get a bad solution, or it's the old Fram oil filter, right? You can pay me now or you can pay me later. What if
Right.
you buy the cheap version of this thing and you don't get what you want, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's important to get them to. This is for me the fear, uncertainty, and doubt. The FUD
Right. Exactly.
is a good place to bring that in. Well, do you really want a $20,000? When we start to analyze it, this is a $500,000 problem. Do you think you're going to make it go away for 20?
Right.
So
I use the example of $10 helmet. Somebody's in the motorcycling and they go in and buy a helmet, and they want to buy the cheapest helmet possible. And I was thinking to myself, that's for the cheapest head possible. So it's $10 helmet
might
for
be
a
a good
$10
match.
head. Yeah.
I'm just going to strap it to the back of my bike anyway, and I'll put it on when the accident starts.
Right.
So
Yeah,
I'll be ready.
exactly. Yeah.
All right. So what we're talking about is my point number 3, and that is the number isn't always cast in stone. They're going to give you a number. It's probably the low side of the budget. They might have talked about 20 to 50, but they're not going to give you that $50,000 figure because they want to have some wiggle room. If a client is thinking about the long-term negotiation, they're probably going to lowball you a little bit and see what you have. So this is where you have to really bring that impact and that value into play, because the value that you're going to create is probably going to be great multiples of the price you charge. You might be charging 100,000, and the value, if you can prove it, might be $1 million.
Exactly.
So what are you really bringing to the table? And you have to understand what that value is. I was talking with a client before we did this podcast today, and they're working really hard to get their salespeople to quit talking about price and talking about value. So you've got to know what your value proposition is.
Yeah, good advice.
All right. Number 4, know what your competition is charging. If you want to feel confident in the cost value ratio that you're providing, then you need to know what competitors charge, and you need to know what their value proposition is. And I don't think enough salespeople know this. I think they go into those situations and they have absolutely no idea what their competitor company is charging for the product, especially for their service.
Well, and sometimes I think a lot of salespeople know exactly what their competitor is charging, because I remember the day when it was switching phone lines. Is you get somebody coming into your office and they say, "Oh, show me your phone bill, and I'll be able to beat the price." And it's like, "Oh, okay, so that's how we're going to be deciding on value, is just buying it on commodity, on pricing it." This is exactly the way some salespeople they're selling car insurance. This is the exact same thing they do. I'll give you a quote. I'll beat your rate. Well, is that value? I mean, and then these customers switch to a company that's just online, and you got to send in your emails, and then they call back their previous insurance agent. And I know this because my brother sells for a big company, and they call the previous insurance agent going, "I can't believe they won't answer my phone." And then my brother's saying, "Well, you switched. I mean, you get what you pay for."
That's right. You want the value from us and the price
Right.
from them.
Exactly. It doesn't work that way.
Yep. Well, that's, when they call back and they're not getting the service, that's the time to switch them back.
Yeah.
And say, you're calling me because you're not getting what you want from the online company. And we're all going to have to compete with that. We're all going to have people that have a lower price and provide less service no matter how low a price we have, because if they're going to pay you to be the salesperson, then you're a part of the charge. You better at least be able to rationalize why you're going to get paid for what you do.
Exactly.
So number 5, the price is the most obvious thing to negotiate on. So if you say, they always tell me my price is too high, well, that's because that's where they all start. Price is something that's a quantifiable issue, and I can always say, oh boy, yeah, you're going to have to do better than that, or your price is just too high. And if you're not ready to ask a question back like, oh really, why, or compared to what,
right,
if you're not ready to challenge that question and know what your value proposition is, yeah, you're going to sell on price.
I had a situation where I had a roller bag that one of the wheels went off on the roller bag. So I took it into a luggage shop and I asked them how much it would cost to fix the wheel. And they're like, oh, this bag's kind of old. And I'm going, well, I did buy it at Costco 20 years ago. It survived 20 years at Costco. And they're saying, oh, it's probably going to cost you more to just replace the bag. And I'm going, really? I don't even think I can find the part, they said. So I said, well, do you have any bags? Yeah, let me show you a bag. So they get this beautiful roller bag, put it on the table. They're showing me this, showing me that, and feel how light that is. And then I go, okay, and how much is it? They said, well, it's $425. I said, I'm not there yet. Keep going.
You're only at about $90 worth of value.
Yeah, you're at about, you might be at 300 maybe. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, and they're like, oh, well, how about if we're having a sale? Oh, you are? Yeah. Okay. No, now we're going to meet somewhere in the middle.
Right.
Because I didn't say your price too high. I said, I'm not there yet.
Right.
You're going to have to keep going.
You know what? We may have to do some price adjustments. We have to make that decision, but don't make it the first decision that you make. What else do you have? And that's my number 6. You want to give yourself a little wiggle room on price. You may start a little high, so you have some concessions that you can make that aren't going to kill you. But I think you need to think in terms of other value adds. So maybe this roller, this luggage company could have said, if you break a wheel within the first 2 years, you can bring it in and we'll fix it free.
That's got a lifetime warranty on it. Yeah. So don't have that problem anymore.
Well, that's right. Or can I lower the shipping? Can we hold it can we hold more of the product at our warehouse and less at yours? Can we give you special customer status that might provide some value to you? So when you're getting into a price discussion, there's other things that are just price that can have a dollar amount associated with them as well. And it doesn't have to just be the bottom line price, because every dollar you take off, you're going to take a dollar profit away.
Exactly.
That you don't give up cost, you give up profit. And so when you drop your price $10, you just lost $10, fully $10. Lost the whole thing. That's right. So you don't lose 5 of it because your cost ratio is 50%. You lost it all, and now your cost ratio is going in the toilet.
Right. I did buy the bag for those listeners that are listening and playing along at home. I did buy the bag
because they put it on sale.
Well, we came together in the middle.
That's right. That's right. But he gave up his profit.
Well, a little bit. Yeah.
A little bit. Yeah. So that's what we need to know. So, and that tells me, that informs my number 7 and my last point, and you may have some more, and that is, when you're in this kind of a negotiation with a client, be willing to leave a little something on the table, provide an extra service without them having to ask. If I have a client that's reasonable, then I want to be able to help them a little bit. I have a client that I'm working with right now. They're a great client. They've been really good to me. They have an event coming up. I'm probably going to go speak at that event for free. I'm not going to charge them for, that hour's worth of work. I could. I'm going to provide great value, but I'm working with them in a lot of other areas. So this is something I can say, you know what? I would do an hour talk for somebody just to try and get them interested in me, so I can do an hour talk for my client. So don't try and wring every penny out of every deal. If you got a reasonable client, it may cost you a lot of dollars in the long run.
Right. I think a great question to ask a prospect is, are you looking for the best value or the cheapest price? And they're going to go, well, what's the difference? And then that's where you can really get into a formula as to how you determined the price based on the cost of inaction and the value that you deliver within that formula. So it's cost minus price equals value. And once you start to get that formula together, you end up spending a little bit more emphasis on the cost of inaction. And then the price becomes relevant because it's within that context.
Yeah. Customers have their own vision of what value is.
Exactly.
And they know what they want. But I do think that you have the opportunity to introduce some things. So let's say, for example, you're buying this bag, you want it lightweight because the one you had was too heavy. You want a better zipper because that one kept getting stuck. That you want rollers on it. These are some of the things that because you've used this bag now for 20 years. But the idea that you could have an extended warranty and get the wheel fixed if it breaks didn't even occur to you.
Yeah.
So,
right.
so we can tell you about all, I ask you, I said, well, Scott, what's important to you about a bag? And you tell me about the zipper and the weight and those things. And then I say, well, how about, this wheel broke on you. How about if we were able to extend the warranty, would that be something? Oh yeah.
Bingo.
So there's some unique value propositions that I have with my company that all of you salespeople have. Those are the value propositions you want to make sure that they're interested in, because then you separate yourself from the competition. If they want the values that you're uniquely situated to provide, then the competition can't win because they can't provide those values. But you may have to introduce those values.
Yeah, your story just made me remember, people love to buy, but they hate to be sold. And just going through that whole example in that pitch, the endorphins were just flying in my brain, Bill, going, wow, I just love that example of, and they did say that. I bought the bag. I felt good about the bag. And I'm still using it now. Obviously, it's got a lifetime warranty on it.
Yep.
But it was a pleasurable experience.
Right. It was better than a Costco bag. So you got a better quality.
Right. Yeah, and Costco and Sam's, and I think I've mentioned this, in the past, is Costco delivers more value. Costco or Sam's wants to cut the price, and that's the difference. Is always add something more, saying, how about if we agree on this price, but we'll include this. Car dealers always did this with the undercoating, remember? And include something more. Like Bill said, this company hired me to do some training. They've got, an annual fundraiser, and I've got a great speech or a great presentation, and I'd be happy to do that at no charge at all to support the cause. Right. Boom. Everybody's happy.
Right. And you're getting in front of them again.
Yeah,
that always
exactly.
helps
you. Yeah.
Right. So you're proving your product's worth. I talk about, can you throw some, you're delivering an order. Can you throw some hats for the guys? Can you throw in some tchotchke that you have, an extra product that they use a lot? Anything that you can throw in there. They open that box up and they're like, wow, this is great. They sent me a shirt. And so it's providing a little bit of advertising for you, and they've got a shirt they like. It's always a win-win.
Yeah. I knew a company that threw in a bag of Snickers bars
every
time they sold something, because it got opened up in purchasing. And then all of a sudden there's a bag of Snicker bars and they're going, hey, these are for us. There's a little note there going, these are for you. And then everybody in purchasing wants to continue to buy from that company. And if they switch, it's like, we don't get Snickers bars. We're not going to support that new vendor.
Yep.
We want Snickers bars.
All right. Any other thoughts you have on?
No, it was a great topic, a great discussion, Bill. Thanks for the examples. And I thought we really covered a lot of ground, and I hope that our listeners are able to use something that we shared. So
I do have a resource. I have a 2-minute selling tip, my number 9, called The Price Question. This segment of the Winning at Selling podcast is brought to you by The Art of Prospecting, your guide to getting in the door, by Steve Kloida. Steve Kloida was known internationally for increasing salespeople's ability to make solid appointments with qualified prospects. You too can learn this essential skill by ordering a copy of his superb book, The Art of Prospecting, your guide to getting in the door. In this book, Steve shares the top strategies and tactics he has developed, implemented, and personally tested with more than 1 million sales and prospecting calls. You can get his book on the website theprospectingexpert.com. In addition, check out his other great online resources. Instant Sales Coaching, which will guide you through 5 online success modules. A guided prospecting process entitled Call Reluctance Transformer. And the Magnetic Selling Strategies Workbook, a detailed step-by-step guide to increasing your sales. Get any of these valuable resources at theprospectingexpert.com. salesperson.com.
So our golden nugget today is from a familiar person these days who's been in the news recently. And the quote is, if you want to be a millionaire, start with $1 billion and launch a new airline. And that's Richard Branson.
Yeah. Oh, I'll tell you, there's no greater country in the world for losing money than America. There's plenty of opportunities for people to take your dough. Steve Martin said, you want to know how to make $1 million and never pay taxes? He says, first, get $1 million.
Yeah, exactly. I love his humor.
It's like, oh, that was easy.
Yeah. So, and then, Jeff Bezos, did you see what he said after he came back from his $6 billion flight or whatever?
Thank the little people.
Right. I want to thank all the Amazon employees and customers because you paid for this.
Yeah, you made it possible for me to go stroke my ego.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Yeehaw.
Keep buying. Well, there's the old joke about the farmer who won the lottery.
What's that?
And they said, what are you going to do with all that money? He goes, oh, I think I'll just keep farming until she's gone.
That's true. It's very, very applicable.
All right. You can find all this without the jokes.
Yeah.
winningatselling.com. All the information, the links will be in our show notes. So look for it there.
Our next chapter 8, let's get real, let's not play. We're going to cover the appendices. And then our topic is going to be part 9 of the sales process, which is the presentation step.
Go out and get better one skill at a time.
Joyful selling.